Hi, everybody. I'm meteorologist Joe Chaffee on this Thursday. Thanks for joining me on my YouTube channel. And for those of you who are joining me from the West, you're going to get some attention today because that's where all the action is in the United States. Actually, we have two storms here, and the first one is coming inland in Vancouver. You can see the spin here on the satellite loop here, the rotation as that low moves inland. There's rain that goes all the way down into north central California to about San Francisco with this trailing front that's sweeping inland. And this is the storm that's going to bring some very heavy rains to southwestern California, all the way down to San Diego and further south. And this one, actually, we talked about this yesterday, very, very impressive in terms of how this is playing out. Let me just take the opportunity, by the way, just to say welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're new, glad you're here. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's absolutely free. And also for those of you in the West, I'm going to, and actually throughout the United States, now that we're getting into a bit of calmness for the East, I'm going to try and do my videos where I pay a little bit more attention to other areas. I've been, trying to do that on a daily basis, but sometimes, as I'm doing these, I tend to go out on tangents, but I'm going to make a conscious effort because I know a lot of you have mentioned about the fact that you don't get a lot of attention in the West. So I'm going to use this as an opportunity to learn how the weather in the West works. So anyhow, this is the storm that is really going to be a big rain producer. And I'm going to show you on the NAM model here as we go through today and into Friday. You can see how far south. This low is pretty far south. San Francisco is here. Usually the lows wind up going to the north. This is one of those rare occasions where, and it does happen, but you just don't see it too often, where the bulk of the energy is going to go down to the south. And the other thing is, you can also see this, how the model shows this long fetch of moisture. This has got a very, very strong feed of tropical moisture that's getting drawn northward, and the yellow areas indicative of some very heavy rains that sweep inland into Los Angeles and areas in southwestern California, Los Angeles, San Diego, all the big cities, Santa Barbara, up and down the coast in that area are really going to get clobbered here. But this also, by the way, if it plays out right, since a lot of the rain does spread inland throughout the entire state, that you are going to, if the drought isn't over, it's very, very close to it. A 5-year drought in California, might be done after this winter is through with it, because the rainfall has been just incredible. And this is a perfect example of what happens when you pull a rubber in nature, when you pull a rubber band and you stretch it as far as you can in terms of an extreme, whether it be storminess or drought, that eventually that rubber band snaps. And the result can be pretty painful and pretty volatile. And I think that's what we've seen here. When you go without rain for 5 or 6 years and you suddenly get 5 years of rain all at once, not fun. Okay, and potentially dangerous and destructive. Now, okay, so here's that low, moving into the weekend, starting to weaken as it moves eastward. And here comes another system. This one is further north, that's going toward Oregon and Washington, and that brings another round of rain to the coast, although that seems to weaken a little bit. So we're going to have to switch over to one of the other models with regards to this. And I'm going to go to the GFS because very interesting what happens in the longer term. So the GFS, the same idea here. Very, very strong storm. There are going to be gales all up and down the coast from the southeast, which is unusual. And then there's that tropical feed, and very look at that band of rain that the GFS shows that comes in. There's going to be thunderstorms, all sorts of things, heavy snows. But again, the snow levels are going to be pretty high, and then that low just moves inland, and you get another one that goes up into the northwest over by early next week. Now, what's going to happen is that eventually we're going to get there's a third disturbance that comes in on Tuesday of next week. You can see it here, and that one is going to head into the Rockies. And I think this one has a chance to becoming a pretty big snow producer for Colorado, western and northern Colorado, into Wyoming, Montana, on up into most of the northern and even the central Rockies, spreading into Nebraska and then the Dakotas, and eventually up into Minnesota as that low moves to the east. So this could be something to look forward to in an area where they have been getting record highs and temperatures in the 70s and 80s, believe it or not. Just been a crazy winter in so many respects. Every winter actually has a certain amount of craziness to it. Now we're going to switch to the east and take a look at what's going on. I'll put it up on a nationwide perspective. And, really, as far as we're concerned, now that this third major storm, and by the way, when I speak of a major storm, it doesn't necessarily mean that for your particular area, you're going to experience major storm conditions. I try to be specific on where it's going to be. A major storm, meteorologically speaking, in terms of showing an intense low, I'm trying to emphasize the meteorological feature, not necessarily what the outcome is going to be for your particular area. Hey, guess who showed up? Little Kovu. And that's Kovu, and he's a boy. Would you hear me do my radio, my TV, my weather video, and you wanted to come down and say hi? He's a very, very sweet cat. All cats should be like him. He's a cat that actually likes to be held like a baby, believe it or not. Okay, so I'll get the camera maybe a little better so you can share the spotlight. There he is. So anyhow, so here's our major storm in the east, which once it pulls out, we're in for a big warm-up this weekend, probably getting up into the 60s on Sunday. And then there's a weak backdoor front that comes through with high pressure building southward for Monday. So Monday will be not as warm as Sunday. And, we've got this weather system going by in southern Canada that doesn't really do very much. We've got this weather system that comes out of the Gulf. Now, here's that system in the Rockies that comes out on the models for next weekend and beyond. Now, I just want to say that I'm not sure whether I buy the idea of a deep low going to the lakes with this. We've seen all winter long how the models have done that, and it's been wise to be skeptical. So I'm just going to be skeptical. And I still think that even though when you look at the individual model runs, that it doesn't necessarily show anything. I've been trying to tell forecasters and some enthusiasts who seem to focus too much on the literal interpretation of what the model runs do is I would expect a threat for a couple of events during the first 2 weeks of March. It would just make sense given the pattern that we've had all along. So let's look at the upper air, because the upper air has been such a mess, really. One of the things that's been really consistently active here is this Pacific jet. And here's that system into California that's coming in, and you can see it right there. And you can see how they line up. This has been the story all winter long, one after another after another. Here's that major storm in the east that's pulling away. You've got that blocking ridge trying to hold it in place near Greenland, but that's just not going to happen. That starts to progress eastward. So once that lifts out, and this storm lifts up to the north, east of Labrador, between Greenland and Labrador, that allows this ridge in the east to pop up, or at least in the middle of the country, and then eventually that ridge is going to move to the east. We see here's that California system now moving into the southwest, but again, this parade of systems one after another. If we had a good block, a really solid block here, where you would have established at least some kind of cold flow into the east. With this sort of active Pacific jet, it would be snowstorm after snowstorm. I mean, we've just seen 3 major storms form in the east in 6 days. The biggest impact obviously was more in New England, especially northern New England, than any place else. But you need certain things to just kind of line up the right way, and we're just not getting all those pieces. Definitely this winter has been one for the West. There's been an absence of a polar vortex for any length of time. And, we've been getting these 2-week periods where we get these snow threats, mainly from central New Jersey on northward. South of central New Jersey and south central Pennsylvania southward, there's been hardly any snow. And I think if when we get into early March, that that same pattern is probably going to hold yet again. So we'll run it through here in terms of the longer range, and you can see the pattern in Canada tries to sort of change a bit. There's just a lot going on, and I don't know, again, in terms of the specifics, I don't know how this is going to play. You got a ridge that builds back in Alaska. You've got some ridging out in the Atlantic. There's a bit of a polar flow that's trying to set up here, but nothing especially strong. Deep cutoff in the Pacific. Strong Pacific jet coming in. I just tend to think this is kind of like, this is really something that is going to be evolving. And for those of you who look at the short or the long range, I would just, again, want to say that you're not, I think every event that we've had here in the East has really not showed up on the long range at all. Not maybe hints of it, but in terms of specifics, no. I think we're just going to have to, I think they've all pretty much shown up inside the short range, in the shorter range, inside that 7-day period. And I think that's what we're going to see. We're going to see something, I'm going to say 2 events that are going to show up sometime between, let's say, February 26th to about March 15th. Somewhere in that window, I think there are going to be 2 threats for snow in the eastern part of the United States, and we'll include the Great Lakes and Ohio Valley, because I know you guys are in tears. You haven't gotten much snow this year. Chicago, I think, has gotten. I think I saw a stat where they've barely gotten. They haven't had an event produce more than an inch of snow since mid-December, and that is not a good year for you. But I will tell you this. There was a 20-year drought in Chicago. I've never forgotten this stat from 1979 to 1997. Okay, that's 18 years. And you think of Chicago as an area that gets a lot of snow. In that 18-year span, they did not have not one storm in Chicago measured at O'Hare, and I believe also at Midway. Not a single storm in that 18-year period produced a 10-inch snowfall or more. You would think that Chicago would get a 1 foot plus snowfall at least every other year, and there was an 18-year stretch without it. So snow droughts like this are not unusual. Okay, so my point is that I don't think there's anything that's been going on weather-wise this winter that we haven't seen before someplace in one way or another. I lived through the 70s, 80s, and 90s, where most of the winters in the eastern part of the United States were subpar, especially for coastal areas. And that was a 30-year stretch. I think a lot of snow lovers have been spoiled by the fact that the rubber band snapped back in the other direction for the last 16 years, where the majority of the winters have produced above normal snowfall and an abundance of 1 foot plus snows, and even 20 and 30-inch plus snows. So everybody's gotten spoiled. And speaking of spoiled, this boy is really spoiled. But we love him. He's a good boy. Okay, so everybody have a great day. We'll keep you abreast of all the developing weather situations that we have around the nation and in the Northeast every day right here on my YouTube channel. So do please subscribe if you'd like. It's absolutely free. Notified when videos come out. Download my app and subscribe to my forecasts. My Weather Concierge is the app. I'll put a link, usually shows up at the top of the screen. A little card comes up and you can link to it. The app is free, and my forecasts are just 99 cents a month for New York, New Jersey, Long Island, Connecticut, Hudson Valley, and Eastern Pennsylvania. And you can also find me on Facebook, meteorologistjoechaffee.com, and on my website, meteorologistjoechaffee.com. So everybody have a great Thursday, and we'll talk to you soon.